Welcome to Solutions, where listening will leave you inspired by solutions to issues you or others you know may be struggling with in the public education system today. I am Olivia Wall, and I am so excited to welcome my guest today, the incredibly talented Amy Ludwig Vanderwater. Let me tell you a little bit about Amy. Amy has taught writing for over 20 years and is one of my favorite poets in the entire world. Her children's books have received accolades from the Junior Library Guild, the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and the National Council of Teachers of English, also known as NCTE. Amy's newest book, The Sound of Kindness, will be out in mid-August, but lucky you, there is a video of Amy reading this gorgeous book that you can have access to before then. Amy, it is my honor to welcome you as a guest on Solutions. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Olivia. I was just excited to have a chance to chat with you. It's been a long time.
It has. I love to start every episode with inspiration. And I know we all have people that have touched us in our lives as teachers, touched our hearts. So who is an inspiring educator from your life that you could share?
May I share more than one?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I was very lucky. My grandmother was a fourth grade teacher. My mother was a fourth grade teacher. I would pretend to teach my dog, like I was like a home instructor of my dog as a little kid. And then I was very, very lucky. I've had many wonderful teachers in my life. Most notably, I had a man named Mr. Fran, is my sixth grade teacher, who had a garden with us and a chess club. And he was he was a fantastic teacher, but he also led a different lifestyle. He did not have electricity. He did not have a television. He did not have running water. This was all by choice. He was an unusual, generous, brilliant man. And at the end of sixth grade, he gave me a thesaurus. And I don't know what he gave everybody, but I have a thesaurus from him in which he said something like, "Dear Amy, I know you will use this thesaurus well. Have a wonderful life, your friend, Joe Fran." And then the fact he gave me a thesaurus, he signed it, your friend. He put his first name, like I just felt always such a kinship to him. And then, of course, we get older, we have more and more teachers. And I will say that if I were to say, where does my interest in my current work come from? It is a marriage of what I really learned from Katie Wood Ray in learning to read like a writer, and also what I learned from my late mentor, Lee Bennett Hopkins, who taught me so much about poetry and so much about giving and about revision. And I have my only tattoo says "Good Books, Good Times," which is from the title of one of his books. And so I have just been tremendously lucky. And Naomi Shihab Nye, who I, cross paths with in airports once in a while. I'll just see her, but just her work, even though I don't know her, she is still, I have many teachers I've never met as well.
Yeah. And I've admired you from afar forever. And, we come from the similar neck of the woods where we live close. And I know you right now are living in a big old farmhouse, and we'll get to that as well. So Amy, for the podcast, something I really love about it is I see issues in public education, but then I seek out guests that are change makers and that have solutions to actively just tackle this obstacle that we face. And something that drives me bananas is that poetry is not highlighted more than April, which is Poetry Month. And then it crushes my heart that poetry is often coached into around state test prep because teachers are concerned with students being able to analyze the poetry. The solutions you offer are the ways that you craft poetry to really be read all year long. And I know that's a belief of yours. And my favorite thing about you as a poet is how you weave nature into your writing. One of my favorite books you've ever written is Forest Has Song.
Thank you.
And it makes me feel like I'm sitting outside in winter and nature. It's just spectacular. And poetry that you've shouted from the rooftops forever is a powerful form of writing for both children and adults. So what I love about you is you're so creative. You're a knitter. I love knitting too. And I know that it's being a maker that is important to you. So, what is it about poetry and making books for others that you love the most?
This is a lovely question. Well, I would like to first address the first thing you said, which was the lack of poetry in schools on the day-to-day. And I think just from my fortunate experience getting to work with lots of great teachers is many people are, and this is not new to people who love poetry, but afraid of poetry. I was just teaching a class to children's book writers earlier this week. And I asked at the beginning, what is something that is puzzling to you about poetry? That was just sort of just to get people chatting. And as I walked around and listened, these very talented writers, many of them were saying, well, I just don't really know, like, what counts as a poem? Like, is this, like, does it have to have this? Does it have to have that? And I think that many teachers, many writers, many just humans have not been brought up with lots of poetry in school, right? And so we do tend to gravitate towards what we know and what we feel comfortable with. And if we don't feel like we know what counts as a poem, then we might be more likely to say, okay, if it has 5, 7, 5 syllables, then it counts. If I write my name down the page and then I use the initial letter of every word of my name, then that counts. If I have, you know, this, if it's iambic pentameter and it has 14 lines, and then it's a sonnet, that counts. So I think there's this, almost we've made poems into like Sudoku puzzles or something that they have to fit this certain framework and be a certain form rather than accepting that, you know, if you say, if you wrote it and you call it a poem, then it's a poem. It doesn't mean anybody else might like it, but like modern art, do you know what I mean? If you make it and you call it that thing, then it is that thing. So I think that something we need to, when I was at the Reading Writing Project a lot of years ago, I do remember one thing Lucy Calkin said that really stayed with me was we need to, you know, to help teachers provide certain conditions for students, we have to also, teachers deserve to have some of these same certain conditions. And I have lived by that. Like, I believe if I want teachers to share more poetry with children, then I need as a teacher to bring poems to my workshop. So I have for whatever, 20 something years led every workshop by reading a poem out loud, giving everybody a copy. And over the years, I've gotten people writing to me years later saying, could you send me that one again? I'm reading at my mother's funeral, or I'd love to give that one poem you gave me 3 years ago to my sister now. Or I'm making a collage for my daughter before she goes to college, but I can't find that. And I think just giving all of us opportunities to connect with poems and see, oh my gosh, this counts. Like, that somebody gave me that poem and said it's a poem, but it doesn't rhyme. But it resonates with, I am different because I read this poem. So that is first, I think. But about the maker part, yes, I just love making stuff. Mr. Fraun being my great teacher and living this very alternative lifestyle. And he didn't talk a lot about it. We just knew this about him. I think I credit him partly with living out here in the middle of nowhere, with never having had a television as an adult, with, you know, trying to get outside and do a lot with the little. And I feel like I just feel like, you know, I'm in the second half of the life hill now, and just really realizing how it is what we make of the day. It is what we make of the interaction. It's nothing, this is dark, but nothing really has meaning on its own. It's like we give it the meaning. And so poetry, making things is a way of making meaning, and making things with words is, to me, really the ultimate way of making meaning, because it helps us understand ourselves, our people we know, the strangers we come across. I think we become more open-hearted and whole, at least I try to, through writing. So for children, like adults, all of us have different access to wealth, to materials, to everything, to nature. But with writing, words are, if we read aloud a lot to students and help access to libraries and model the power of books and write with alongside children, then writing is a way to grow and to escape and to I don't know, create new worlds. And so for me, writing is just another way of making. That's a big answer
think
for
something, but it's also, it's so, it resonates with me because I think as a mom of a teenager and a tween, I go back to certain pieces of writing based on where I am in life. And I see that piece that connects with me differently, gives me a different perspective. And one of your poems, I asked you if it would be okay if I read it. It's called First Flight. And every time I read this poem, I think of being a mom and that idea of wanting your children to have independence and to fly. And the idea of what a first flight means. Like there's many first flights for our children. And, my husband and I keep saying, Ben, he has 2 more years before he flies from our house and will always be the nest, but he's going to build a new nest for himself. And so this poem it gets me every time. And I want listeners to hear it. And you said it's okay that I
thank you for reading it.
Yeah. First Flight. Mommy, I'm scared to be this high. All owls are scared on their first try. My tail feathers feel so tingly with fear. You can do it. Calm down. Careful now. Steer. I can't see a thing through all this black. Just go to spruce and come right back. Flap, 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 whoosh. Flap, 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 swoosh. Look, Mom, I made it. Wow, I can fly. I knew you could. You were born for the sky. And all I'm going to keep thinking is the flap, 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 because there are moments, Amy, that there's a lot of flapping. And then I pray for the whoosh. I pray for the swoosh. But, being a parent is no joke. And I feel like, yes, we're teachers. That goes to our core. But I also have many other identities. And I take great pride in being a mom. And so I think that what I want listeners to know, what I want children to understand is you connect with poetry based on where you are in life.
Well, thank you for reading that poem so beautifully. And when I share it with children, and I do often with really cute puppets, and I say to them, sometimes we write something that really happened to us. Like it is a true experience. This really happened to me. And sometimes we write something that didn't happen to us at all. We completely made it up. But sometimes we write something that's a little bit true and a little bit made up. So I am not an owl. Like I am not an owl. I have never been a baby owl. And however, I am a mom and I watched my children learn to tie their shoes and ride a bike and drive a car. So I have the feeling of the mother owl, and I can take my mom feelings and imagine them into how a mommy owl might be. And in that way, I think we also can open doors for children to realize, like, you can have a hard thing you go through and you don't have to throw somebody under the bus when you write about it. Like we can write about it through fiction. I say to children, lots of people who are writers, who are artists have had difficult things happen to them in their lives. And then they make art or they make their writing, and it's a way to have another life. Like it's a way you can have the hard thing, but you also can have a separate thing. And all of us can do that. Doesn't mean your whole life might not be hard, but you might be going through a hard spell. And you can have your first life, which is the life you're living, the second life, which is your reading life, and your third life, which is your writing life. And then you, on a moment-to-moment basis, when you get to choose what you do with your time, you can be you. You can go be that character in the book you're reading, or you can go pretend you're an owl if you feel like it. And to me, like that is really helpful. Magical realism, I think got me through COVID. So
true.
But living in the country, So we lived in the suburbs for the first many years of our marriage. I grew up in the suburbs. My husband is an ecology teacher and a biology teacher. And he was the one who wanted to live in the country, and he wanted to have 3 to 5 acres. And I said, well, why on earth would we need so much land? So we bought this completely beat up old farmhouse with 25 acres. And
there you go.
And here we are all these years later. And I think what's great for me, I mean, I miss things in the city. I love the action of the people and the tiny interactions, as that Hidden Brain episode talked about, of, the person in the coffee shop you get to chat with and the person on the street.
Yeah.
But the other night we were outside sitting on the porch and my husband heard this noise and he goes, oh, that's a screech owl. Like we really do hear the owls, and we really can go for a walk, and our children could run and never hit a fence. And as they did, when we lived where I loved before. But nature is just ever giving. So you can be in a bad mood and go outside and suddenly it's okay,
Yeah.
So I feel very thankful. What we lack in the integrity of the structure of our home and the fun of neighbors, we do gain in other ways.
Inner peace, Amy. It's all about quiet and inner peace. Oh my gosh. Well, and I've always wondered, you write in so many genres. I mean, one of my favorite essays you've written is Drop Off Cats.
Oh.
I love that essay at the back of A Journey is Everything. And you know what? I've got to say, I have used that as a compare contrast with the horrific 5-paragraph stupid essay of why you would choose a dog versus a cat, or why you're a cat. And I've used yours as the model of, no, this is what real writing is. So, I mean, it's just gorgeous. And you've written in anthologies, you've written professional books for adults, teachers. Is your writing process always the same? How does it differ for your audience? Like, take us through it.
Okay, this is a little bit of a tricky question because I feel that I need to script the answer that makes me sound like a more thoughtful writer than I, in fact,
Baloney.
am.
No,
because I am not
us.
I don't have certain hours I write every day. I don't, I'm not very well disciplined. I said to kids sometimes, if you like writing short things and your mind, like maybe you have ADHD and you're interested in a lot of things, poetry might be the form for you.
It might be good.
I love mixing it up. I like that I could write about this, then I can write about that, and then I can come back to this, and I can come back to that. So I love the essay form, and that Drop Off Cats was initially in, I think it was like our local NPR station used to do these listener commentaries. I think it was one of those.
Yes.
Okay. And then Catherine, Bomer generously picked it up for The Journey is Everything. But
so good.
I like telling stories. And so the essay form is interesting because it's all about a story and a meaning, right? It's making the meaning of all these cats that showed up at our house. And what I think students don't always realize, and I don't always realize, is that you don't have to know what something means before you start to write about it. You can just start writing about something that's interesting to you. And through the act of writing, you discover what it means. Like it is through the writing that you realize the meaning of that story that somehow, it's an important story to you, but you don't know why. But by writing, you worry it like you do, a stone in your hand. So the poems, I just like to, I, again, wish I need a better process. Discipline.
You don't.
I do a poem every Friday on the Poem Farm. That's really important to me. The blog, it keeps me doing it because, at least one person reads it. And then I do a poem every day in April, and I have for many years. And that helps me because I know classes follow it. So it is helpful to me to have an automatic instant audience to make me work because I'm sometimes better at pleasing other people than me. So if I just am going to write for me, right, getting a book published takes forever. It's it's very hard, and I don't really like the business end of things. I just like writing in my notebook, and but the essays, it was great. Like when we used to have that with NPR, our local paper has a column that you can, sort of write in. Poems Are Teachers, my teacher book with Heinemann, was really a labor, but truly of love, because I did feel very grateful to Katie Wood Ray for all I learned. I was in a workshop with her when Wondrous Words came out, and we got the first copies of it. We were, and she talked about it. And that book, I read it a bunch of times because it just changed how I thought about writing. And then I had studied, worked and written a lot of poems for Lee Bennett Hopkins. And then I realized, oh my gosh, all these things that Katie's taught us about reading like writers, not with poetry, like I'm doing with the poems that I'm trying to write for Lee. So these two things, like I'm understanding poetry better through this way of seeing writing or other people's writing as possible teacher for me. I thought, well, this is really new to me. Like maybe this would also be useful to teachers and might provide a legitimate reason to bring poetry in every day, because it's not just about the poetry. It's about, well, if you learn how to write strong beginnings and endings, then your strong beginnings and endings in your poems can translate to all your other genres that you write in. So I know that some teachers who really want to share poetry maybe don't feel support. It's not a unit in my grade or whatever. So really spending time trying to articulate how poetry can inform our other writing was not in my real wheelhouse, but I thought it was really important to do. And I was so grateful to the over 50 contemporary children's poets and over 100 children and teachers who shared their poems in there, because I felt since Katie, taught me about looking at the mentor, understanding what the mentor did, trying it yourself, like in a book without mentors, I as a teacher would not go check out 100 books to try and find these moves. So I'm very grateful to those people who shared those. So that was, but that was hard, because that's a lot. That's a fat book. And it was, I just don't write things that long. So, but I'm glad I did it. And with the support of my daughter, Georgia, who was like cataloging them and making sure everybody signed the permission forms, wonderful to have a high school student you can hire in a time like that.
It takes a village. And I'm telling you, like something you said, and I'm fascinated to know, you are a notebook keeper. You do keep notebooks. And I know in this digital age, especially over COVID, a lot of children were forced to jump on Chromebooks to do all of their writing, to be able to show the teachers. And I remember Henry was in 3rd grade at the time, my younger son, and I pushed him to keep a notebook. And I was so grateful that his 3rd grade teacher also really valued the writing process and having children start in a notebook as a workbench. And then jump out of the notebook to draft in a Google Doc. But what do you do with all of your notebooks over the years? Do you keep them for inspiration? Where do they go?
Okay, well, yes. At first, I would like to say what you said about COVID and notebooks and that time. We're still I still feel like it's taken me till almost today to dig out from that hole with a, teaspoon. And during that time in March of 2020, I had no school visits. Everything, of course, was canceled. So I did teach 72 notebooking videos at my YouTube channel, one a day until the last day of school, because then I had a reason to get dressed and could pretend that I was a teacher. And so it's kind of funny, because I run into a lot of people who still use them or talked about using them with their own children at home. And I do believe, for me, that writing by hand is it's a very different writing experience than typing on a computer. So I certainly use computers.
Totally
I like
agree.
computers. I have nothing against computers, but there is a different kind of organic sense of writing by hand. And I would hope that children over time won't lose that. I do know that in many schools, that since students did write just on Google Docs because they were home and everything was on a Google Doc, and their conferences kind of went by the wayside, writing conferences, that in many places it is sort of easier in a way to just start there. I mean, it isn't easier in terms of the writing's better, but it's more expeditious to do that. It's more efficient in the moment, perhaps. And so I hope that over the next couple years, we'll find a way in schools to bring children back to notebooks where they disappeared, and real conversations around writing. So that said, I have kept notebooks over the years and always feel like I should go back and reread them. And it's true. You can mine your memories and, learn how you repeat the same petty patterns over and over. And why will I ever learn? But My father died during COVID in August. I got a teaching job, teaching fourth grade on August 19th, 2020. And my father died on August 21st. And so my father lived 3 hours from me, and I hadn't taught in 22 years. So I was teaching fourth grade in person, and I had remote students. And then every weekend, my husband and I went home to my dad's to clear out his house. And, all kinds of things like my grandparents' taxes from 1944, lots of things.
Amazing. Yeah.
So during that time, I was struggling to be a person and a teacher and a mom of young college students. So that said, I just was overwhelmed by actual physical objects in my new classroom, in my father's home, in my own house, everywhere. So this is going to sound super dramatic, but on Halloween 2020, which was not, I didn't do it because it was Halloween, and I didn't do it because it was a full moon, though it was. I made a really big bonfire and I burned all my notebooks in it.
Come on.
And I had all these, those reusable shopping bags, and because I had this huge shelf of them, and I'm like trying to incorporate my dad's stuff into the house and my stuff into the house. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need a new start. Like I'm a teacher. Like I'm not even writing poems anymore. I'm not on my blog. Like these have got to go. I don't know what it was. Honestly, I think maybe it was, I feel like I've spent half my life collecting stuff, and now I've spent the second half getting rid of it. And if I can get rid of those notebooks, and then I can get rid of anything, like, because in a way they're they're my life. So I'm putting them all in these big shopping bags. And my husband, who's lovely, is saying, Amy, I think really this might be a little hasty. Like maybe we could just put them somewhere else. And you could, my kids who are adults are going, Mom, those are our childhood memories. Those are, you can't just.
What are you doing?
I just kept going, wait, watch them burn. And I'm just putting them all in these bags, these shopping bags. And I brought them out, and I had this really, it's not funny, but it's funny to me, picture of them all in the fire, which I love to show students because I show them all on the shelf and then I show them all in the fire. Because I just think they were at that moment a burden to me. Because I think it was, I'm a sensitive person, and I think, like, I was picking strawberries 2 days ago, and you're talking about, having 2 years left with your kids. And now I'm that lady in the strawberry field who stops mothers of adorable toddlers who are singing, oh, Mr. Sun, Mr. Golden Sun, look, Mommy, the jackpot, find a strawberry here. Like, I'm hearing that, and I'm the lady in the red shirt, because we always wear our red shirts picking strawberries, going, this is going to go over by really fast. Like people used to do that. And I believe them, but it really, and I'm like, so I think in a way, maybe keeping them is just too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're gone. And I like children to know that too, that's okay. Like I don't have to own the thing for the thing to have mattered to me. Like because I wrote the things in those notebooks, I am still changed by them. Like I still remember the memories better. I don't remember them as well as rereading them, but they are more, I reinforced the memory through the writing of the memory. I don't have to own the notebook. And I did not write mean things about people. So I was not worried that if I die, they're going to all know I hate them. Like it was not about that. But I also
I wouldn't think it was
really
such.
Want to know. I mean, I have friends who are authors who are like, I'm giving my notebooks to the New York State author library, whatever. I am like, oh my God, no, I don't want anybody to know any of how messed up my head is. Like you can just read the little books that are out there and that be the reflection. So so they're gone. But I think it did make me, it was like a good lesson in detachment. I'm not really sad. Like kids ask, are you sad? Like do you miss them? And every once in a while I'm kind of like, gosh, I wonder. But I think it's better. I still think it's better. They're gone.
I think it's freeing, and man, I think that's a great story.
It's a crazy story, but I did look it up, of course, right? Because everybody's done everything before you've done it now, and you can find out about them on the internet. So I did look up, like burning all your notebooks, right? Like I Googled some crazy phrase like that. And I did read an essay by a woman who had previously done the same thing. When I was thinking about doing it just for, moral support. And it is kind of an interesting, different, I don't know, it was helpful to read that somebody else had done it and they're still here to tell about it. I think sometimes
they
it's
made
easy
it.
to think like, I need this thing. And then when you don't have it and you're still okay, like that's good.
It's pretty remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something you're making me think about too is several things you had just said. One of them is poetry has to run all year long because it's that important. And something I've tried to tuck in with teachers for students is rethinking the different phases of the writing process and redefining what developing means in a notebook. Because I work with lots of students that it's just slam out their first draft and really collecting, where it's just starting to kind of do a brain just dump of everything that is coming to your heart. And so I paused, and what I saw kids doing is they'd write out the first draft. They would choose that as their draft. They'd go in to develop it by just rewriting the draft. So when you asked kids to jump out of the notebook and to move into drafting, revising, editing, they were like, no, I'm done. See, it's in my notebook.
Yeah, they turned into human copy machines.
Right. And so I finally thought, like, we have to look at developing with a big heart around it. We have to look at revising with a big heart around it, because I asked, it doesn't matter what mode of writing you're living within. It could be narrative, opinion, or argumentative, informational. Poetry has a place in every single one of those modes. It does. And so I've given examples, if your kids are writing fiction or animal fantasy or real, have them get to the heart of their character by writing a poem about that character.
Yeah, so, or in the character's voice.
Absolutely, right? So that idea of developing poetry has a place there for me in every single unit of writing, because it's a gorgeous way for students to get it right to the heart of what they're trying to say. And that's how I'm using it. And a lot of teachers have given feedback to say, I've had students that were reluctant writers or that just didn't want to get voluminous writing down, but giving them autonomy and choice and agency to get their character's voice out there or the topic they're writing about through a poem, it was a shift for them. And I think that's powerful.
It is. And oftentimes those students who see themselves as struggling in more long form writing write the best poems, like the most moving, transformational poems. And to not give them that genre opportunity, I think often we just miss a lot of beauty.
It's a big miss. And so something I followed of yours for a very long time is the Poem Farm, and you've mentioned it. I'll include links to all of this in the show notes, so people will have access to your variety of goodness and the way you put yourself out there in the world. Could we pause and could you read a poem to us, one of your favorites?
I would love to read a poem to you. So
I would love that.
I also, may I read two?
Please.
Okay. So I think what you said about, I just want to find this one. What you said about poetry, Katie Ray said something ages ago. She was talking about picture books, and she said, a picture book is like the container. So the book is the container, but the picture book itself could be one poem, or like The Sound of Kindness is, or it could be a nonfiction book, or it could be a story, or it could be an essay. But the picture book itself is just the container. But it could hold any one of these genres, right? So when we look at poetry, we could say the same thing. Like the poem, this little set of short lines is like the container, the vessel, if you will, but it could hold a poem. I mean, it could hold a story, or it could hold information, or it could hold advice, or it could hold an opinion in the container of the poem. And so I want to just read you one that is one thing and one that's another thing. So this is from Right. And this is a poem called Revision Is, and it's just a list. And ages ago, I went to a workshop where somebody, and I tell you, I wish I knew who it was, but whoever you are, this is for you, credit, said that pretty much everything you read is a story or a list. And it's very helpful to, at the outset, sort of know, like, is this thing I'm writing a story, or is this thing a list? And sometimes something's a list and it has stories embedded in it, right? Or it's a story that also feels like a list. But so this is a list. And it's called Revision Is. And Ryan O'Rourke is the artist, and he does really cool lettering. So this is Revision Is. revision is a little bit bummer, a little bit yes, a little bit risk, a little bit guess, a little bit play, a little bit fear, a little bit fuzzy, a little bit clear, a little bit imagine, a little bit do, a little bit old, a little bit new, a little bit shuffle, a little bit loss, a little bit add, a little bit toss, a little bit maddening, a little bit fun, a little bit faith, and then you're done. So
Bravo.
it's just a list, right? And it's just a little bit a million times, but then always, right, when we look at these list structures, they end with some kind of a twist, right? So that's how you know it's
yes.
over. But
list with a twist.
With a twist, right? So this one is from the blog and from the Poem Farm, and this comes from a story. I was in a school with a great teacher years ago, and she was a special education teacher, and she said, I just have to tell you this story of something that happened with one of my students. So she told me the story, and I remembered the story, and I wrote it down in my notebook later. And then that's the other thing I think that a notebook is really helpful for. If you just jot down things that are happening to you every day, then later when you do need to write a thing for an audience or a purpose, you have all this material.
Yes.
Right? It's
yes,
like, I buy way more yarn. Like, I'll die on a pile of yarn. And
same.
I'm not making a fire of that, but there's a lot
I don't
more
feel
yarn
badly about
than
that.
I'm probably actually going to knit into anything. Right. But similarly, like I have a lot more in those old gone in notebooks that will not be made into anything, but I still gather it all up. Right. So she tells me the story. I jot it down. A while goes by. And then someday I'm like, I got to write a poem, right? Because it's Thursday or whatever. And the blog is tomorrow.
Yes.
So like, I don't know what tomorrow's is going to be right now. Like tomorrow I have a blog post and I don't know what it's going to be. So I'm like, oh yeah, that story that teacher told me. I'll write a poem about that, right? So because I jotted it, now I had it.
Yeah, the kernel.
So this poem is called Small Story for Zoe. And Zoe is the girl, the name of the girl this is about. Small Story for Zoe. I saw the brother hurting, and I saw the sister watching, and I saw the sister cutting a small corner of her blanket. And I watched the sister give it to her hurting little brother, that small piece of her own blanket that he lifted to his face. And the brother rubbed the blanket on his cheeks, all tear-stained spotted, and his sister whispered something, and he said, I love you too. And I hope I will remember when I see somebody hurting this small story of the sister who knew just what she should do. So that one's a story, right? The first one's a list.
Beautiful.
This one's a story. And it's happened to somebody else. I did not witness this, but in writing of the poem, I could pretend I saw them do that. And so I think writing gives me and children, right, and adults, because we're just children who are bigger, permission to change the world a little bit. Like, I didn't get to see that, but I can pretend I got to see it. And that makes my life better, pretending I got to see that.
You're reminding me of a moment that I had totally forgotten. And I don't know if you remember this. I was doing a lot of work in schools in New Jersey at one point, and I would get there really early because I hate being late. And I would sit in the office before children had come into the building. But this particular school, kids would come in slowly because they were all eating breakfast. And every day I sat in the office and no one knew I was in there. It was like behind a wall, and I would sit there, and the kids were coming in and they all had these little stories of things in their lives. And I watched the women that were in the office take care of everything from cut fingers, from children not having, just meeting every need. And I started in a notebook to jot down in the guise of, if the walls of the office could talk, these are the stories that they would share that go completely unnoticed because the office is a constant machine. And I just remember that I wrote those. I had forgotten until now. And I remember, I think I sent them to you. And I felt proud of them.
Did
and
you share them with the office there?
I should. I didn't. I didn't.
Well,
and
I
should.
honor like what you're saying about the people doing that work. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a moment, and I think, like, we capture these small nuggets, but they are so meaningful because people, they do make a difference, and poems do as well. And I think the other aspect you've spoken to is that sharing our notebooks. It was another blog that you kept alongside the YouTube series, if I'm not mistaken, while you were teaching. So you did say that you jumped back into the classroom, and that was a hard time for you. I cannot imagine that time in your life during COVID. I didn't know your dad had passed. So let's flip the switch. What are some positive memories, or what do you remember from that time when you jumped back into the classroom?
Well, I got to be a fourth grade teacher like my grandma and my mom. So that was great because I had taught fifth grade when I was really young. So I worked in a district, a really lovely school system that I had done some staff development with. And I was very grateful to get this job as an ELA teacher. So I had 2 in-person ELA classes in the morning and 2 remote ELA classes in the afternoon was the way that worked.
Wow.
And let's just be honest. I hadn't taught in a really long time. I'd been in a lot of schools and I didn't recognize how difficult and challenging and important teaching is, but it is, you also remember it even more doing it. So, I was really out of the loop, and wanted to do a very good job. And I would say I did the best job that I could at the time. And if you were to evaluate, not you, but if one were to really evaluate it, I'm sure I would have been found wanting in a million ways. However, the good things is where we'll stay right now. And I would say there are a couple things, right? We read a lot. We did write in our notebooks, and that was beautiful to see what children did. We read, children read a lot of their own books. We read a couple books together, which was also lovely because being some students remote and some in person, the shared book, we read Tuck Everlasting. And we had kittens. My daughter was home during COVID. We were fostering kittens at the time. And we kept 2 kittens named Tuck and Winnie, when we read Tuck Everlasting. So I got to show my in-person and remote students like a tiny video each week of Tuck and Winnie and how they were developing because we had read Tuck Everlasting. Sweet. So that book was just so beautiful to connect
Game
us.
Changer.
We read old books. We also read My Side of the Mountain. And I had this Peregrine Falcon puppet for which one of my lovely students knitted it a scarf for Christmas. So my little Peregrine.
Impressive.
Yes, she was the best teacher gift ever. And but the best memory I have is really I did commit to sharing poetry every day. And so what we did is I picked 1 poem a week. And for my in-person students, I wrote it on a chart paper. Yes, it is true. I had a smartboard in the room and I used it for lots of things, but I did not want to use it for the poem. I just didn't. I wanted to have a chart paper. So I had all these big old poster boards and I hand wrote the poem and I had it on these like pants hangers, right? And I hung the actual poem on the smartboard, which was off. And I'm just going to make a point right now to say to teachers, it is completely fine. And I would argue even a wonderful thing to turn your smartboard off when you're not using it. So that students see that using a screen in our classroom is an intentional choice. Like I'm turning this on because we are doing this thing, but it is not like Fahrenheit 451, like default, but like that we're surrounded by just like rolling images. We don't, it's not good for our attention, I don't think. No. And it's good for students to see, well, now we're going to do this. So we'll turn this on. I have to always be attached. And when I'm in schools now, I ask, may I just turn this off? So I had the poem on the screen hanging there. And I just want to explain this because it was so simple. So teachers, this is so simple. Like even I could do it in grief. So you hang your poem on the smartboard, or if you're home, I also had a digital poetry notebook so that my at-home students had this, right? It's hanging there. It's Monday. I read the poem out loud so students could hear it in a, nice poemy voice. Then we all read it together. Then students would say, could I read it by myself? So like a few students would read it on their own, right? Monday, everybody hand copies the poem into their little composition notebook. This is super old school, but you hand copy the poem, which is really good because you're paying attention to the line breaks. You're paying attention to the punctuation. You're paying attention. Copy work is a good thing, I think. So we're doing that and everybody does that. Then Tuesday comes that we all have it in the book. I hang it on the smartboard. I read, no, now I don't read it. I don't think. Maybe the second day I did, but we all read it together. And then Switch like, may I read it? Right. So that we straight through to Friday. That's it. That's how it goes. And if you're absent because you have COVID, that's okay. You know, it's not okay that you have COVID, but it's okay. You can still do your homework because it's also digitally there. So you can still copy it.
Yes.
Because it's there.
Yes.
So then that's that week. The next week comes, it's Monday. We have poem 1 hanging. We have poem 2 hanging. So we introduce a new poem on the new Monday.
Right.
We all read poem 1. We all are familiar with it. And now I read poem 2. We all read poem 2. A few people volunteer. They be copied in their notebook. You follow me? So it's the exact same thing, except we're not letting go of poem 1 yet. Now we don't do this all year that we keep all the poems. So then week 3, same thing. So we have 3 now by this time, children all have poem 1 memorized. Without being told to memorize it, right? Because now they're going, can I read with my eyes closed? And go, yeah, sure, go ahead. So, but if they peek, I don't care. So now we have 3, right? They have 3 written in their notebook. We've recited them. And now on week 4, Monday, we drop off poem 1. We slide over poem 2 and 3 on that smart board because it's a great chart rack. And then we add poem 4, which has now become poem 3, right? So because poem 1 is now archived onto the clothing rack.
And
so as we go, children would say things like, could we just read Treasure Words? We haven't read it in a real long time. So I'd go get it and we'd do that. And what was so beautiful was just it was such a chaotic time, but we were really anchored by those repeated words and images and phrases and voices. And I made sure to pick all kinds of poems by all kinds of people in all kinds of forms, and some rhyme and some don't. So of course, when we wrote poems, they had lots of models. And there's this beautiful poem by Rachel Field. I'll give you the info for the show notes, called Something Told the Wild Geese. And you can also listen to it as a song, and it is beautiful as a song. So we all wrote it. And then I said, this is also a song. Played it. It's beautiful. And then one day, I don't know how many days in it was, one of the boys in my class says, because they just say, can I be the one to read it? You go, can I sing it? And he stood up and sang Something Told the Wild Geese in that 4th grade, beautiful, clear boy voice. And it came out of it was such a gift. It was like, those times when you're teaching and it's like the angels are singing somewhere. Yeah. And they were, but it was him. And all the kids just couldn't, believe that. It was so beautiful. So then the year goes on, and then we end up with 36 poems at the end of the year. And some are long. Like I give them some that are really hard and really long because they go, oh, this is really hard and really long, but then I give them an easier one. And at the end of the year, they had like a few class periods to like catch up the ones they missed, so they'd have this complete little book. And then each class on their own asked, on the last day of ELA, can we just read all 36 poems together? And I was like, yeah, that's a great last class. So we did. They had their notebooks and I had them up there, and we just read them all out loud together. And that was, it was a gift to me. Oh, and I bought like a machine that, how when you have, I'm trying to see if I have, how when you have a pencil, it has like the foil on it. I wrote a thing about this for somewhere. Oh, Colorado Reading Council. You get a pencil and it's got the foil on it.
Yes.
I bought the machine that you can print, foil the pencils. So I took 4 lines from 4 of the poems that we loved, and then I printed them into the, I don't know. This is Words Are Magic from Rebecca Dotlich's Treasure Words, that one I mentioned, because they were favorites. And then I tied them together. So they each got 4. And then when I gave them to them on the last day, they all knew. They said, oh, this is from Rebecca's Treasure Words. This is from Lee Bennett Hopkins, whatever. They're like from Langston Hughes, whatever. Yeah. And, so that was fun. It was like, I would say that is the one thing I'm very glad to have invested in. And it did not take a lot of time. Reading a few poems at the beginning of class. And it did create, I think one of the things that happens in public schools, the nature of us all coming from so many different places and different philosophies and different whatever, the things that bring us together are like the Pledge of Allegiance. And nothing against the Pledge of Allegiance, but it's sort of a whole school thing. There's something about beginning the day with a poem that is very ritualized and beautiful and centering and community building. And so it is sometimes I feel like the most nourishing things we let go.
Yeah, I agree. And it's really short-sighted.
But it's so easy because they're not loud. Like sometimes the most valuable things are not like read aloud, just for the sake of reading aloud a beautiful book. People go, whoa, but this I have to do. Like this, like if you can evaluate, I can't evaluate how much the read aloud made them human. Or how much this poem made us a community, because I can't prove it. I have so many demands on me, and it's scary to be a teacher in this culture, of world of America right now. And so how do I justify reading a poem every day? How do I justify reading aloud a book without accountably talking after every sentence? Right. So I do think having just like one or two things that a person can say, like, I believe in this so much that I'm just doing it at all costs.
Well, and I think there's two pieces. There's two pieces there, because if you know what you believe and your practices mimic those beliefs, and it's lovely to have research to have your back too. But if you believe that community is everything to support effective learning and teaching, then you're not going to let go of those things. But we make time for what we care about, right?
Right.
And
but I think it's hard in how fast the culture is and how plugged in we all are.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we don't know what we believe.
Well, and that's because where, to me, that's so the calibration
we have to do. So like making some space to like clarify, like I can be a happier mother for longer, or happier writer for longer, happier teacher for longer, happier wife for longer, if I know what I believe about my role there and can hold to it, because all the bad things are still going to happen. But if I have my little mast that I can hold on to no matter what bad storms come, at least I didn't betray myself.
Yeah. It's huge. So what would you say our call to action is then, to ensure that we hold sacred to what we believe? That's pretty global, but to make sure that what matters to us, like poetry or whatever else you adore as a teacher, keeps going.
Well, I think I have always tried to remember, I think having written a lot myself makes me a very kind conferrer with other writers. Like when I speak to a 5-year-old writer, it's not that different of a voice than if I were speaking to you. Like, I think if we can all remember, and myself included in this, I'm not saying you should remember, but I need to remember, and do try to remember, that this 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old, whatever year-old in front of me is just younger than me. Like that is a full human who someday might be my doctor or my neighbor, or do you know what I mean? The guy who helps me out because I'm sick, and he's my neighbor, or he's the guy who mows my lawn and he teaches me how to do it, or like, I don't know who that person's going to be. It's not just because they're going to benefit me, but they're going to be, I don't mean personally, but me as anybody, right? Like all these young people, and a lot of the students I'm teaching, they're so much smarter than I am. Like, they're just younger. Like, it's not like I, happen to have the power in the room at the moment because I'm teaching them, but that child is going to be like a fully old human, just like I am now. And what can I offer this child as a person? And I think with poetry, with reading, I think the call to action is, and I'm trying to be clear, is to focus on the person, the people, and who they will become in ways beyond standards. The standards are important. We want children to know how to read well. Yes, they need to know how to sound out words. They need how to do long division. These are skills that as a teacher, it is my responsibility to teach well and carefully and in a research-based way that's effective. And also, it's important that I remember that at the center of this person doing long division and sounding out words is a human being who I hope will want to sound out words because the poem matters to them, or because the book is getting me through this hard time. Not the end game isn't the sounding out. The end game isn't doing the long division, right? The end game is I have this business that's really important to me. And so I need the math to be right in order for my sales to work, because my goal is
it's authentic. Yeah.
So how do I help see a big picture while I'm doing all of these very important goals that can be evaluated, remembering that not everything can be evaluated in the moment. There's the long game here too.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of my favorite things I'll end on is I adore your book, The Sound of Kindness. Adore it. And I truly believe we can all be a lot kinder to each other, and pause before we react, pause to write a poem, pause to think of every human we're interacting with. If they're young, they are a full human, just like you articulated. And the sound of kindness is we need to look and listen for kindness everywhere through people's words, through actions, and live and breathe it. So Amy, you live and breathe it in a million different ways. And I'm grateful for you on earth. I'm grateful for you and your writing. And I'm grateful for you being a guest. Thank you.
Olivia, thank you so much. It was just such an honor to be here. May I read one final poem?
What a perfect way to wrap our conversation.
This is With My Hands. This is a poem all about making things. This is a kind of crafty book, but the last poem is called With My Hands, which is the title. And this is illustrated by Lou Fancher and Steve Johnson, a married couple. And this is With My Hands. When I make something new, I'm never the same. I can never go back to the person I was, for the thing that I made is a part of me now. I changed it. It changed me. I am different because I brought a new something to life with my hands. If you are a maker, then you understand. And I think that's a better call to action, to help children be also just makers.
Make things, make the world better.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So thank you for making the world better with this really great podcast. That's such a generous inspiration to all of us educators. It really matters.
Thank you, Amy. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Scholutions is a podcast created, produced, and edited by me, Olivia Wall. Special thanks to my guest, Amy Ludwig van der Water. Also, a big thank you to my older son, Benjamin, who created the music that's playing in the background. I would love for you to share the podcast far and wide, leave a review, subscribe on YouTube, and follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Scholutions Podcast. If you'd like to become a Scholutions sponsor or share episode ideas, leave me a SpeakPipe voice memo at my website, oliviawall.com/podcast, or connect via email at scholutionspodcast@gmail.com. Please keep listening. Let's continue finding inspiration together.